Welcome to another deep dive, and this one is all about rewiring your brain for success.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, this one really caught my attention.
Yeah?
We're going to be looking at an interview with a mindset expert from the Success Unlocked podcast.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, and it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and just feel like you're on autopilot.
Yeah, totally.
But this expert actually claims that that's literally true for our brains.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts daily.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And 90% of those are the same thoughts as the day before.
So we're basically just on repeat most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we break free from those old tapes and actually start achieving bigger goals?
Yeah, how do we stop hitting the snooze button on our potential?
Right.
Well, this expert says that it's not just about, thinking happy thoughts. It's about understanding how our brains physically change based on our thinking.
Okay. Unpack that for me a little bit.
Sure. So think about learning a new skill,
Okay.
like playing the piano. At first, it's clumsy and frustrating, right?
Right.
But with practice, your brain forms new connections, those neural pathways, and eventually your fingers are just flying across the keys without even thinking about it.
Right. It becomes second nature.
Exactly. And this expert is saying we can do the same thing with our thought patterns.
So instead of practicing scales, we're practicing new ways of thinking, and that literally rewires our brains.
It's called neuroplasticity.
Wow.
Which just means that our brains are constantly adapting based on our experiences. So if we keep repeating those same negative thoughts, those pathways get really deeply ingrained.
Oh.
But if we can consciously choose new positive thoughts and behaviors,
Okay.
then we can create entirely new pathways that lead to a more, successful and fulfilling life.
That's amazing. And I know, there's a lot of buzz about manifestation and the law of attraction, but this feels like it has a basis in actual science.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's not just magical thinking.
Right. It's about understanding how our brains work and using that knowledge to our advantage.
Okay, but I think it's important to point out that this isn't just about positive thinking, right?
Right. It's about so much more than that.
Yeah.
This expert actually talks about how our personality creates our personal reality.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What does that mean?
Well, it's not just about isolated thoughts.
Uh-huh.
It's about the interconnectedness of our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions.
Right. They all kind of work together.
Exactly. They'll work together to shape our experiences.
Can you give me an example of how that works?
Sure. So let's say you're someone who constantly worries about things going wrong.
Okay, yeah. I know a few people like that.
Well, those thoughts of worry will likely trigger feelings of anxiety, right?
Yeah.
And that anxiety might lead you to avoid taking risks
Oh, I see.
or pursuing opportunities.
Yeah.
So as a result,
Yeah.
your reality actually becomes limited by those fears and anxieties.
Wow, that's so true. You almost create a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. And on the other hand, if you cultivate thoughts of confidence and self-belief, you'll likely feel more motivated to step outside of your comfort zone and actually take action.
Right.
And those actions then reinforce those positive thoughts and emotions,
Oh, I see.
creating a positive feedback loop.
It's like a snowball effect.
Exactly.
The more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Exactly. And that's why changing our thinking is so crucial for creating lasting change in any area of our lives.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's about breaking free from those negative patterns and actually rewiring our brains for a reality that aligns with our goals and aspirations.
That's a powerful concept, but how do we actually start doing that?
Yeah.
It's one thing to say think positive,
Right.
but it's another thing to actually shift those deeply ingrained patterns.
It definitely takes conscious effort and practice.
Right, and we're not just talking about wishful thinking here, are we?
No, not at all. This expert's not advocating for that. It's about creating a new mental operating system.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? Where do we even begin?
Well, the first step is awareness.
Okay.
We need to pay attention to our thoughts and become aware of those negative patterns that are holding us back.
So it's like becoming a detective of our own minds.
Exactly. You need to start noticing when those old tapes start playing.
Those old stories.
Yeah, the self-doubt, the worry, the limiting beliefs.
Yeah, we all have them.
We do. And once we become aware of them, we can start to challenge them.
Okay, so let's say we've identified some of those negative thought patterns. What happens when they inevitably pop up?
Right. Well, that's when we need to consciously choose a new response.
Okay.
This expert suggests taking a deep breath, reminding yourself that you're choosing differently this time, and mentally rehearsing the new, more positive response.
So we're basically replacing those old worn-out scripts with something new and empowering.
Exactly. It's about retraining our brains to respond differently to those familiar triggers.
So we're creating new neural pathways that support our goals.
Yeah, instead of hindering them.
What about those times when we try something new and it feels uncomfortable?
Well, that's actually a good sign.
It is.
This expert says that feeling uncomfortable is often a sign that we're growing and pushing beyond our comfort zones.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's in those moments of discomfort that real transformation happens.
So instead of avoiding discomfort, we should actually embrace it.
Exactly. Embrace it as a sign that we're on the right track.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all comes together, but I'm guessing there's more to this rewiring process than just our thoughts, right?
Right. We don't live in a vacuum.
Yeah, after all.
Our thoughts are just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
We also need to look at how our emotions and actions play into this rewiring process.
Yeah, because it can't just be all in our heads, right?
Exactly. We have to bring it into the real world.
Okay, so let's dive into that a little bit more.
Sounds good.
Yeah, you're right. It can't just be all in our heads.
Yeah, thinking about success all day probably isn't going to magically make it happen.
Right, exactly.
But this is where this whole idea of aligning for success comes in.
Aligning for success.
Yeah, it's about becoming the person who embodies success.
Okay.
Not just someone who thinks about it.
So it's not just about thinking positive thoughts?
No.
But actually taking action that's aligned with those thoughts?
Yeah, you get it.
Okay.
Think about it this way.
Uh-huh.
If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, but you spend all your time watching TV,
Yeah.
are you really aligned for success?
Probably not.
Right.
It's about walking the talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Our actions need to reflect the thoughts and beliefs we're trying to cultivate.
Precisely. And the fascinating thing is that this expert argues that when we start aligning our thoughts, emotions, and actions, the universe actually starts responding differently to us.
Hold on. Are we talking about like cosmic energy here?
Not exactly.
Okay.
What the expert means is that when we become the type of person who embodies success, we naturally start attracting different opportunities and experiences.
Interesting.
It's like we become a magnet for the things we want to manifest.
So it's less about like woo-woo vibes, right? And more about how our internal shifts impact our external actions and the opportunities we attract.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our energy, our actions,
right,
the way we show up in the world, all play a role in shaping our reality.
Okay, I'm with you, but how do we actually do that? How do we become the person who embodies success?
Well, it starts with identifying the specific qualities and behaviors that align with the success you envision.
So for example, if you want to be a successful leader, what qualities do successful leaders embody?
Well, things like confidence, decisiveness.
Yeah.
The ability to inspire others,
right?
Things like that.
Okay.
Then you start focusing on cultivating those qualities within yourself.
How do we do that?
Maybe you take a public speaking class to boost your confidence.
Oh, okay.
You practice making decisions more quickly, or you start mentoring someone to develop your leadership skills.
So it's about taking concrete steps to align ourselves with the version of ourselves we want to become.
Precisely. And the more we align our thoughts, emotions, and actions with that vision, the more we start to embody it.
But let's be real, we're not going to transform into super successful versions of ourselves overnight.
Of course not.
There will be setbacks and challenges along the way.
Absolutely. This is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
There will be days when we fall back into old patterns.
Yeah, for sure.
When we feel discouraged or when we doubt ourselves.
So how do we stay motivated and keep moving forward when those inevitable bumps in the road come up?
Well, this expert emphasized the importance of self-compassion.
Okay.
It's about being kind to ourselves, recognizing that we're all works in progress.
Right.
And not beating ourselves up when we stumble.
So instead of getting discouraged when we slip up, we should treat ourselves with the same understanding and encouragement we'd offer a friend.
Exactly. And remember, progress over perfection.
Okay.
Focus on celebrating the small wins along the way.
I like that.
Each step forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating.
You know, this whole conversation reminds me of something you said earlier about how this expert emphasizes small, consistent action.
Yes.
What does that actually look like in the context of this rewiring process?
Well, it's about breaking down those big, overwhelming goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
Oh.
Instead of trying to overhaul your entire life overnight, focus on making one small change at a time.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you're someone who struggles with negative self-talk.
Yeah, I think we all do to some extent.
Instead of trying to eliminate all negative thoughts immediately, you could start by simply becoming aware of them.
Okay.
Notice when they pop up, and without judgment, simply acknowledge their presence.
So just observe them.
Yeah. And then you could gradually start replacing those negative thoughts with more neutral or positive ones.
So it's about taking baby steps.
Yeah.
And building momentum over time.
Exactly. And the more you practice those small, consistent actions, the more you'll strengthen those new neural pathways and make lasting change.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all fits together, but there's one piece of the puzzle I'm still curious about.
Okay.
How does this rewiring process actually lead to tangible success in the real world?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
This is where we see those ripple effects this expert talks about.
Okay.
When we change our internal world, our external world starts to reflect those changes.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So remember how we talked about how our thoughts and emotions can influence our actions? Well, when we start rewiring our brains for success,
Yeah.
we naturally start taking actions that are more aligned with our goals.
So we stop procrastinating.
Yeah.
We start taking risks. We pursue opportunities we might have been afraid of before.
Exactly. And as we take those actions, we start seeing results.
Okay.
We might get that promotion we've been working towards.
Oh, that's great.
We might launch that business we've always dreamed of.
I love that.
Or we might finally attract that loving relationship we've been longing for.
It's like we become more confident and more capable.
Yeah.
And those qualities actually start showing up in our external reality.
Precisely. And the more we see those positive results, the more it reinforces our new beliefs and motivates us to keep going. It creates a powerful upward spiral of growth and success.
That's pretty inspiring. It sounds like this rewiring process can really have a profound impact on every aspect of our life.
It absolutely can. And the best part is,
Yeah.
it's a journey anyone can embark on. It just takes that commitment to ourselves to becoming the best version of ourselves.
I love that idea. It's about taking ownership of our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions.
Yeah.
And consciously choosing to create the reality we want.
You got it. It's about recognizing the incredible power we have within us to shape our own lives and our own destinies.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive so far.
Glad you're enjoying it.
I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, but I know there's still more to explore.
Yeah, we've just scratched the surface.
So much to think about, so many great takeaways so far. I really like this concept of rewiring our brains for success. We've talked about the science, aligning actions, even those ripple effects.
But the big question is, how do we actually make it happen, right?
Exactly. Because the expert kept coming back to that phrase, commit to yourself. What does that really look like in practice?
It's taking ownership, recognizing that power to choose differently. Yeah. Stepping out of those old patterns and creating that life you really want.
Because it's so easy to just go through the motions, right?
Absolutely. And you end up just reacting instead of creating.
Yeah, just on autopilot. But we can make that conscious choice.
Yes. Remember those 90% of thoughts we talked about? Just repeats. Committing to yourself means interrupting that autopilot. Choosing those thoughts that empower you, that move you closer.
So it starts with awareness, but then takes responsibility.
Like you're the CEO of your own mind. You decide which thoughts to invest in, which ones to just let go.
Love that analogy, but I think a lot of people just hear this and feel overwhelmed. Where do we even begin?
Small steps. Consistent action, remember. The expert wasn't talking about overnight transformations. One small change at a time builds that momentum.
Give me a real life example, something people can relate to.
Well, more confidence. You're not going to be a world-class speaker tomorrow.
Yeah.
But maybe you practice speaking up at work, team meeting, even just with a friend.
Baby steps, build those confidence muscles, not trying to bench press 1,000 pounds right away.
You got it. And those small wins, you'll start feeling more confident in little things, then it spills over into everything else.
Those neural pathways getting stronger. It's amazing, this idea that we truly can change.
And that's what's so exciting about rewiring. It's possible to grow, become that best version.
It's a journey, but I think we've shown today it's one worth taking. We've all felt stuck sometimes, but we have the power to break free, create a life aligned with our truest selves.
And don't forget, tons of resources out there to support you. Books, podcasts, coaches, whole communities. You don't have to do this alone.
So important to remember. And as we wrap up, one final thought. Commit to yourself, the expert said. What small action will you take today?
Maybe it's finally starting that project you keep putting off, or 5 minutes of mindfulness each day. Even just speaking to yourself with more kindness.
Whatever it is, take that step, commit to yourself, and watch as amazing things start happening.
That's our deep dive, Rewiring for Success. Hope it's given you some inspiration, some actionable things to try.
Absolutely. Remember, you have that power to create the life you want. It starts with your thoughts. So go out there and rewire your brain. A life full of purpose, joy,
abundance.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep learning.
See you then.